Hello and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignell. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I interview 29 Black women for 29 straight days, all during Black History Month. And today I am super excited to have Runo Okiomah, who is the founder of Elo Spaces. She has an amazing story and I cannot wait for you all to take a listen. Hi, Runo.
Hello, Laura. It's good to be here.
I'm delighted to have you here. Welcome to 29 Days of Magic. As you've been listening and commenting on some of the other podcasts, you already know what the story is. First question's always the same, answer's always awesome. So, Runo, what was your first job?
Great question, Laura. And I'm going to have an interesting answer to give you because my very first job was actually at Mickey D's, McDonald's. So it's not a typical, origin story, but it was for me very, very pivotal in my career journey because it really helped me get very used to working with customers or working with clients face to face and seeing beauty in everyone. Because as you might guess, working in fast food, and at that time I was about 18, I had just moved from Nigeria back to the US because I was born and raised, in the US, but moved to Nigeria, a bit of back and forth. But that was my first job. And I remember being so shy because I had a very thick Nigerian accent at the time. And my family said, you know what? Do this job at McDonald's. It will get you very familiar with human interaction, of the best kind, and it will grow your efficiency. And I did that role for maybe, I believe it was 9 months right before college.
Oh,
And I will say it got me very close and personal with just the beauty of everyday people. Yeah.
oh boy. Okay, so does that mean you know how to make fries really well?
Oh, yes. Not only do I know how to make them, I also know how to eat them. That's my number one, even till today, McDonald's fries. As much as I like, Chick-fil-A and other things, I think McDonald's fries are unrivaled. But the truth of the matter is, interestingly enough, I didn't even do as much of the back of house cooking and whatnot. It was the taking of orders and being that front register person, because I was able to, even during rush hour where you'd have a long line of people, get to make friends with each person coming up and ordering, smiling, getting them to talk about the photos in their wallet as they're paying. Oh, this is my dog, this is my friend, this is my daughter. And really just seeing, again, the uniqueness and the beauty in each person. Even when I got the orders wrong, I was able to always turn those into pleasant experiences and they would always come back. So it was a great start.
All right. Well, it sounds like you actually had a really enjoyable time working in McDonald's. And it's funny, a lot of folks along the way through the years of 29 days of doing this have started their careers out in McDonald's too. So it is, the first place where you get to deal with other human beings who are not related to you, and try not to get into a fight. So it's important to get that human interaction and how to deal with people, learning skills early on. So, okay, so we go from being a wonderful cashier at McDonald's and loving all the fries to us having a chat right now. What's that career journey been like?
That career journey to me has been really beautiful. It's something I couldn't have sat down and planned, but it's one of those where I'm just really grateful that I've had the experiences that I've had. I will say that's something that has translated from the McDonald's career even till now. And I like to joke that I've had almost like 9 different careers over the course of how many decades now? Maybe 2
A
decades.
few.
Yeah, I'd say 9. But in all of that, it's always back to people, honoring them, and really seeing the beauty in each person type and each personality. I'm constantly fascinated by people, so that continues. But at the same time, I'm also super fascinated with beautiful spaces and places, which, if you don't mind, I'll just share a bit of the backstory. I was saying before that my family is originally from Nigeria, both parents. So my name, Runo, the full name is Ogene Runo, which means God has done it. And it's one of those very Nigerian names that has connotations that are just bigger than just naming a child, but they're almost aspiring or hoping that this child can accomplish, great things. And so that's why we have names like, oh, God has done it. So now I have that responsibility of accomplishing something phenomenal. No small feat for any child with a name like that. But the real story is my parents are immigrants from Nigeria. They were studying at Oklahoma State University when they had me. So I was born in Oklahoma. And then when I was about 8, we moved to Nigeria. So they were moving back home, but that was my first time being on the continent. And the beautiful thing was that even in the US, I didn't feel as though I belonged because I was from an immigrant family. I had a very different way of seeing things and doing things in America. Then when we moved to Nigeria, I was also felt like I didn't quite belong because here I was around more Nigerians, but they said I was too American. So,
Uh,
and then even when I moved back after being in Nigeria for a few years, I moved to the US for college. And that was when I got my McDonald's job before my first semester started. And I found out that, oh, I'm quite Nigerian. So I'm almost too Nigerian to be American. So I've actually never felt like I belonged. And that allowed me to have an appreciation for observing people kind of as an outsider looking in and just seeing again how do these people function, how do those function, what is this personality type, how best to serve and honor this kind of individual. So for me it's just been a fascinating journey in people and then in spaces and places because having been born in the US, used to that physical environment, raised in Nigeria, very different physical environment, very different sort of aesthetic, if you will, and wanting to bridge either the beauty I saw in the US with the wealth of community in Nigeria, and trying to bring that to any place that I find myself. So a big connector and just always fascinated by people and places. Yeah.
Very cool. So tell us all about Elo Spaces.
Yes. So Elo Spaces is my most recent venture. As I said before, I've had quite an interesting career of jobs. I've even done a bit of car sales. That was between careers. Did a bit of car sales, did a bit of social enterprise as a fish farmer in Kenya, done project executive work at Google. But Elo Spaces is my newest venture. And that's the epitome, I would say, of the people and places fascination that I've had my entire life. I will say that the origin story for Elo Spaces actually kicks off from a more recent life highlight, and that was 2 years ago when I woke up at 2 a.m. to finish a LinkedIn post about my amazing vacation I had just done in South Africa. At that time, I was in my dream career. I was a project executive at Google. I was making, great six-figure income, mid-six-figure income. I was happy. I was working on beautiful projects with famous architects. My office was 10 minutes from my home. I bought a home near Google. I mean, I loved everything about my life. And then at that 2 a.m., finishing a LinkedIn post about my amazing vacation, I also saw in my inbox that my job no longer existed, that I'm part of a layoff, and there will be a subsequent emails, XYZ. I didn't even finish reading the email because I didn't think it was real, because this is coming in at 2 a.m. And
Right.
yeah, so that huge shock allowed me to take a massive pause. That was a few months of pause, going through the stages of grief, as you might imagine, between denial and acceptance, just ranging through all of that day in, day out, bargaining, God, everything starts coming to the forefront at that time because I didn't really think of my career after Google. I was so content. And that's when I had to sit down, find out what do I care about most with people and places. If I were to interview, what kind of companies would I want to work for? And I did a bit of interviewing, and I found out that of all the great companies I was interviewing with, none of them quite knew where they were going with their real estate, with their workplace design, which is what I had done for my 5 years at Google. So I just thought I will build something that I can be proud of and that can be a way to bless companies and help people that were in my role, so they have these leadership positions and they're figuring out how to navigate, particularly downsizing. I don't know if this is something that your listeners are familiar with, but major tech companies, particularly places like Google, they have amazing amenities, but despite the amenities, folks are not always, returning back to the office, and there's a significant amount of square footage that's underused. And even in Google's context, I believe it was $1.2 billion worth of square footage that they got rid of after the layoffs even. So just getting rid of space because people aren't coming back as much as folks expected. And I know there's a lot
Right.
of government
It's not
mandates and stuff. Yeah, it's just not happening. But you can't blame them, because I do have a lot of engineering friends who have, 4 monitors at home. They've got their snacks. They have a beautiful setup at home. So it's very hard to lure them into an office where they'd have to have one screen, one monitor. Even if you have a swimming pool, a gym, and snacks, you can't really compete with the home where you could roll out of bed and take meetings without commuting. So I'm not saying that there is no place for being in the office. There is moments for meeting and giving meetings meaning. But I do see that the future is one where, after a lot of reflection, we will get to a point like with Uber, like with Waymo, you can just order your vehicle as you need. You don't need to have a car. You can book the car as you need. I do think that with workplace, we will be able to have companies, and they're already doing it with Spotify and Airbnb, where they're remote first. They book space in their building as needed. And a lot of other companies are just fully remote. They don't even have an office space. So my work with Elo Spaces is I help companies plan and figure out a very humane, fun, engaging means. Again, back to the people, focusing on a people-centered, fun experience as they move into either a smaller space or completely get rid of their real estate assets. I help them. I have an entire ecosystem of real estate brokers, interior designers, architects, moving teams, just the entire ecosystem. From my Google days, I grew a very large ecosystem of partners. So I get to let everyone have the access to amazing partners, an amazing process, and amazing results by just working with just me as a business. And it's been very, very profitable. Really grateful that I made that transition.
Amazing. That sounds awesome. I mean, going from the corporate world to and then starting your own thing, and it's very, very, very specific niche. So
Very, yes.
talk to me about a time when you had a challenge. You're like, there's no way I'm going to get through this. And then you did.
Great question about the challenge. As you've said that, I'm thinking about two major challenges, and I'm going to try and whittle that down to particularly just one. And the challenge that actually comes to mind is not necessarily even with career. Believe it or not, it's for me one of the largest challenges I had to overcome was in graduate school. So I'm one of those, as I told you, with the back and forth and not belonging. I did my graduate work focused on people and design, so people and places. I did that at MIT, focused on community, working in rural communities and things of that nature. And so the challenge actually was that I had received an opportunity to do an internship in Japan, and I was super excited and super stoked about it until another student who was seen as more of a darling of the program, he he had an internship that he had previously accepted, but it fell through, and now he had told the faculty member in charge of my internship to say, "Hey, I would like to do that role. I would like to do the Japan internship." And that professor came over and talked to me and said that, Runo, you're supposed to be the one in charge. You're supposed to be the one going, but we would really like this other student to go. He's, more of a typical student that we send on these types of internships.
Oh, crying out loud. Oh,
And he said it to me in face to face. And then I said, well, no, I don't have any other plans. This is my first, internship as a grad student. I would really like to do this. And the professor said, well, the truth is, we've never sent a person of color. We've also never sent a woman to this internship. We often try to, and there will be other students from, what is this, Princeton and Yale, and we prefer to just send this gentleman. We feel he's better prepared for that and to represent the school. And I said, well, I don't have any other plans. I will stick with it if that's okay. And I remember the amazing experience I had in Japan, which helped frame my design principles and my sort of minimalist aesthetic that I believe can be translated to any part of the globe because it's cost effective. That experience would not have come about if I didn't hold fast and say, I will move forward. It's okay that you've never sent a woman. It's okay that you've never had a black person go. It's okay. And what was so profound is the professor came to me after I'd come back from Japan. It was a 3-month internship. And he apologized and he said he has never in all his years at MIT, and he had been there or doing this internship for I think 10 years at that time. He said he had never gotten that kind of positive feedback because I went to Japan. I had one-on-ones with all of my teammates that were the Japanese students at the company. It's a very famous company called Takenaka. I would have one-on-one lunches with all of my 150 colleagues that we all lived and worked together. We had so much fun with, together hanging out that they would let me stay at their family homes whenever I would visit during the weekends, different parts of Japan touring. They would say, hey, you can stay at my family house. So everyone gave such positive feedback. They felt like I really appreciated and honored the culture, honored them. And it wasn't just design, even though my design was excellent. It was another layer of appreciation that this professor hadn't had feedback on in that way. And so not only did he turn around, apologize, and appreciate me, he then was my thesis advisor when I did my thesis, back focusing on Africa and focusing on the Niger Delta, focusing on my people back in the Western, the part of Nigeria that's typically quite impoverished. I ended up doing a thesis on that part of the country, and it ended up being one of the most awarded theses of any student actually in the program because it was multidisciplinary. It wasn't just architecture, it was community design, it was fish farming, it was environmental justice, it was community engagement. Yeah, it was used for MIT accreditation purposes. It was used in a MIT Ideas competition, won $10,000. There's just a lot that came through it, but it's because of that lens of focusing on the people and the place and not really being distracted by other things and by holding fast to what I believe. So very exciting times.
Amazing. And also the hell that they didn't like, they were like, oh wait, we've never had a woman or a Black person. So wait, now we want to do that? No. And you're like, hell no. I love that you were like, I earned this, I'm going.
Thank you. Yes.
That's crazy. At MIT, it's like, we all know you have to work twice as hard anyway. So if you're the one who's killing the game, why would this shouldn't even have been a conversation. But I love how you stood ground and you're like, yep, not doing it. And of course, the experience of working in Japan for 3 months obviously put you on an incredible path.
Agreed. Even till today, I have such love and respect for the country. I was even there last year for my birthday. I'm just reconnecting with all the friends. I love people from different, every nation, every tribe, every tongue. I love as we all kind of come together and realize that at the end of the day, we're all very similar. We don't have to necessarily belong, quote unquote, because as you can imagine, I don't necessarily belong in Japan, but I do in terms of just, if you look at it on the surface of just skin color. But the truth is, when you appreciate other people and they are able to see that deep down you recognize the beauty and the humanity in everyone, we get along so well. So I'm a big fan. Yes, even till today.
Awesome. So obviously you're running your first business outside of the corporate universe now, and that's busy and taking tons of your time. So what does Runo do for Runo? What do you do for your self-care?
What do I do for myself? Great question. I will say that two things. And the first one is a little bit strange. The first one is that I am a cat mom. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, of course I do.
I do have a cat. Yep. Oh, did you say you are as well?
No, I have lots of friends who are.
So
I get lots of cat memes on Instagram and TikTok from my cat mom friends.
I'm not something that gets stuck on, even on LinkedIn now with all these dog and cat, memes and reels. But I am a cat mom in that I actually got the cat. You won't believe it. It was part of the pandemic when everyone was getting a furry companion, if you will. And I was trying to become more relatable for my corporate role at Google. I was finding out that being someone who was, a single African-American woman in the corporate sense, people didn't really have ways to, feel like they could just chat with me and just, shoot the breeze, if you will. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to get a cat because at that time, my manager, a lot of my team members had cats. And I figured it was a way to make me a little bit more personable, number one. And two, in the pandemic, it would allow me to have someone or something, let's say something around that I could get hugs from all the time because I'm a hugger and a furry hug companion. So I got the cat. I still have my Mr. Bobo. His name is Mr. Bobo, which means in a Nigerian way, it means Mr. Handsome because handsome is what the cat is. He is very beautiful. And I just spend a lot of time observing my cat. That for me is therapeutic. Like when he rests, I'm like, oh, this is a time I need to take a rest. And I love observing just how dignified and majestic everything he does is. It's a reminder for me to calm down because I can be a bit hyper and, just over intense. But I see my cat and I'm like, oh, I do need to calm down. And another thing I tend to do is a lot of sunrise, sunsets, walking. I do a lot of walks in the evening. I get to ponder, meditate, pray for people, pray for my projects, pray for myself, my life, and then just watch the sunset and almost really thank God for a beautiful day. It's not everyone gets to see the end of each day, and really being able to calm down and reflect has really done a lot for me and allowed me to, almost like your podcast name, Reset, allows me to reset for the next day. So it's been a real blessing.
Oh, I love that. Mr. Bobo sounds like a very regal cat. One of my good friends, her cat is named Zozo, and she's
Oh,
also a regal, very regal cat. So I get it. And the same thing in the pandemic, get a pet and then keep pet because pet's awesome. I get it. If I didn't travel so much, I think I totally would have a pet, but it's impossible. But I love cats. I love dogs. So thinking about all the amazing stuff that you've been able to do over your career, what do you think you'd tell 18-year-old Runo?
18-year-old Runo. I think this is a powerful question because I recently just gave a talk to 18-year-olds at my alma mater university, University of Texas at Arlington. Woohoo, go Shorthorns. The focus of the talk was things I wish I knew at their age. So it's perfect that you asked the question because I would have loved to tell them about the Bend framework that helped me start this phase of my career. I wish I knew about it earlier. And so I'll give you a very Cliff Note version, but this is what I would tell myself. And it has to do with the ability to just pause and think about what is my personal brand? What do I care about as a person? So B for brand. It's a Bend framework. B for brand, E for expert skills, N for network, D for destinations. And that's with B for brand. What are the specific values, purposes, things that are so important to me that I want to make sure consistently go through my career? Particularly for me, that's things I care about, which is people in place, things I love, which are architecture and of course Japan, but other aspects of the beautiful built environment and people, and then expert skills. Then when I was 18, it was just architecture, and I was so shoehorned into that. But I would tell myself, hey, you want to definitely branch out into other areas, particularly which I'm doing now, but marketing, sales, mentorship and speaking, understanding finance, all of that. If I could have learned that at 18 and not waited to be a business owner would be fantastic. So again, expert skills and training. Now I'm doing a lot of AI skill upskilling because I run my business essentially as a one woman with an assistant and then a lot of AI tools. So would have loved to know that earlier. Networking, not just my company, which was my big mistake at Google. I had only networked within the company. So when the layoff came, I didn't have as strong a network outside, and I very quickly remedied it. And so I'm very embedded in those organizations. So like your previous guest, I believe her name was Kimberly, that was with the AAREP, African American Real Estate Professionals LA area. I'm with the Bay Area group of that and very involved. Even yesterday, we had another mixer where we just as a group of people of color, we come together and we say, hey, what are you working on? How can I add value? How do I connect you? And then everyone vice versa, they do the same. So networking, and then the last is destinations. Where would I like to go? What would I like to see and do? And not just park it at one company and say, hey, give them the reins and say wherever they want to take me. I would rather love to say, these are the areas I want to see impact. I want to be able to provide impact back on the continent of Africa. I want to be able to provide impact in every office manager, every operations lead have peace of mind every time they think of office move. They just think of Runo and they know that they're going to be taken care of and it's going to be a smooth sailing experience. So again, that's sort of what I would say. I know that kind of came off as a rant, but the beautiful example, yeah, the beautiful example is Ryan Reynolds. And I told this to a friend and she laughed. But if you think about Ryan Reynolds, you know, his amazing sense of humor that is very unique, very Deadpool, that he has marked, that's his brand. So think about it as B for brand. That's his brand. His E is his expertise as an actor. He leveraged that to a network of his, you know, in the sort of Hollywood center and marketing space. He now, you know, is in charge of the Deadpool franchise. He markets that. We all watch the movies. He has his own aviation gin. I think he did sell that, but he was the same face for that. His brand was really strong, able to start a whole gin business.
Mm-hmm.
Then brand still does Mint Mobile. We all see the commercials. And he now owns a football club, Wrexham FC.
Mm-hmm.
He will continue to grow horizontally. And all his focus was just his skill of his humor and his good looks. So he just packaged that and he now leverages it, you know, from now till whenever he stops with his innovations. And all of those, I call those were his destinations. He wanted to have a gin company. He wanted to have a movie franchise. He wanted to have, and the more we build these strong brands along the Bend framework, the more we can continue to pivot and grow. And yes, I do move management now and workplace experience and workplace consulting. But when I'm ready to do more investing and startups and And when I want to do more things and more real estate deals and more, all of that, it will be on this brand that I'm building today. And gratefully, I have a growing following on LinkedIn. So I think I'm moving in the right direction.
And you are. I mean, and I think it's so important, and it is very much having this horizontal career. I mean, a friend of mine called it kind of having a portfolio of businesses, and I kind of like that, because like you're not going to do one thing, and just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you won't be good at something else, and doesn't mean you can translate the skills you know that you've used from one other place to then put it into something else entirely. That's just part of the game. But building your personal brand is the paramount thing that needs to be done, especially when folks are trying to be successful in this day and age, because like if you're able to do that, then you can make things a whole lot better, because folks know who you are, and it's like, oh, I want to align with you, and whatever you're doing, I don't know what crazy madness you're up to, but I'm betting on you because I know that you've been successful in all these other things. And that's, you know, how Ryan Reynolds was able to do all this stuff. It's like, yes, it's humor, blah blah blah, but he's a box office winning actor, and you are, you know, the queen of spaces because you spent your whole career doing this for big corporations. So it's like, if you go out into this universe, no matter what you say that you're going to do, because you've got that track record of like, I know how to make this stuff work, and it's a very specific niche that only excellent people know how to do it, and to me. So if I go somewhere else and whatever else I do, they're gonna be like, yeah, like Runo's got that. And I think folks have to understand the importance of, you know, saying what you do, doing it well, networking, and understanding that you have to network in, I call them concentric circles. So like, you know, wherever you are, meet everybody, like top to down, because you never know where folks are going to be. And if you do that, you're going to win the day always.
I love that. I love that. And it sounds like you're already on the same track as well, Laura. Cool. I love what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I'll do this. That's literally how I live my life. I don't have a choice at this point. This is the deal for Laura. So, question for you: do you have a give and/or an ask of the audience?
A give or an ask of the audience. I would say I have more of a give to the audience.
Go for it.
And it's beautiful because it's something that I've heard recently. I'm a big follower of this author, Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and there is this saying she has, which I just wanted to share with, you know, your listeners. I think it's a beautiful way of thinking through challenges and just the way that life has been, or just our current economy, or the way, you know, the things we're going through, particularly as women of color. She says this very beautiful phrase that says that all your pains, all your betrayals, disappointments can only cut and shine the diamond armor that you wear. And it's this idea that we have almost an exoskeleton, particularly women of color, but I do believe everyone is in, you know, is in that boat where at different stages in life, things don't always go as you expect and as you hope and want, but you are realizing that it's just, you're just making your diamond even shinier, even nicer cut, right? More facets to it. And it ends up being that when people meet you, as with yourself and all your other guests, all these women are so beautiful, their diamonds shine so brightly, and they wouldn't have shone as bright if life was easy. Unfortunately, I do think that it's the hardships and the challenges and the betrayals, and in my case, the challenge where people will just underestimate out of the blue. Oh, we don't think you should go on this internship, or we don't. All of those things end up making me even more beautiful, more resilient, more tenacious, and more, I think, beautiful and attractive as an individual. And life is not meant to just be comfortable. Life is meant for challenges. We look back and then you have this amazing heroic journey, and it wouldn't have been that way if life was easy. So we almost have to pity those who have easy lives. That's just my view.
I love that. I love it. Fantastic. And great bit of advice. And now, last question for you. What's one thing that brings you joy?
One thing that brings me joy. Wow. So many things do, but I would say at this time, it's connecting with people. It brings me a lot of joy, the fact that we are all so different. I take this back to our beginnings where I mentioned that I don't often, or I've never really belonged in different groups or different contexts. And so with that outsider lens looking in to see, you know, how others, or people watching, even at the airport, I get a lot of joy out of observing, connecting. So even connecting with you, Laura, hearing more of how your podcast goes and the kinds of guests you've hosted, and now getting a taste for it myself. It's just been the highlight of my day. I'm really honored, and I look forward to listening to more of the podcasts as you continue on your journey. Yes.
Awesome. And thank you so much. And thank you for being part of 29 Days of Magic, Runo. You have such an amazing energy and story. And again, what you're doing is so very specific and so unique and yet so needed. And so I'm delighted that we were able to connect and get you on the podcast. So thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic. We'll put details in the show notes for folks to connect with you. Thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thank you. Have a great day.
And that is our show.